Hey, I'm Rachel Osborne, the founder of Island Indies. We help filmmakers take an audience-first approach to promoting their projects and their careers. If it's your first time here on our channel, welcome. If you've been here before, thank you. Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about different types of film audiences and where you can find them, like how you acquire those audiences. So I'm going to just pull up my Keynote here. And before we dive in, I'll talk a bit about who I am for those of you that do not know. Again, Rachel Osborne, founder of Island Indies, and I'm also a producer and a writer. So that's where I started in my career in film, producing television, when I graduated from journalism school and went back to Jamaica. So that's kind of where I fell in love with even the narrative structure, because I was producing a lot of lifestyle content, but one narrative show, and I loved it. So yes, that's my experience. You can read my full bio, I'll put the link in the bio, but I'm also an e-commerce specialist. So when I got back to Toronto after spending that year and a half in Jamaica, I ended up working at Shopify. So during my time at Shopify, I helped hundreds, thousands of entrepreneurs build their online stores. So a lot of the things that I talk about when it comes to marketing comes from just putting things into perspective for those types of entrepreneurs. I did go to school for marketing, but I really like to focus on email marketing. So email marketing, content marketing, those are things that, because I do come from a content background, those are things that I love. So when you hear me talk about email and I get excited, that is why. When you hear me talk about building websites and running commerce, that is why, okay? Just so y'all know that I'm just not some nerd, like, get emails. You need to get emails, but it's coming from a place of experience, yes? All right, cool. So today we're going to talk about how not every creator has the same goals, and that's okay. We don't have to all make films for the same reasons. And the reason why I'm even mentioning this, because obviously you know that, but the reason why it's worth mentioning is because your goals affect how you're going to treat content, how you go about distributing your film, right? So if you are making films for advocacy because you want to make change in the world, you'll treat distribution and audience a little bit differently, and who your audience is will also be different. If you're in it for commerce, to make money, then you are definitely going to be treating things a little bit different from someone who, say, is creating film for art. It's okay if you only want to create films for art. Again, I'm only mentioning this because a lot of the conversations that we'll be having are for people who want to get into the commerce side of filmmaking. So making films for profit, right? It doesn't mean that we won't talk to people who are making films for advocacy and art, because those people still need an audience. But if you are trying to make money from your film, a lot of the strategies that we do talk about are for that purpose. Cool? All right. So in the broader scope of independent filmmaking, goals also come into play when people talk about the types of film that you create. And the first thing that kind of comes to my mind when I think about niching based on theme, which is, that's the popular advice, like cater your content to an audience based on their interests, because it will make it easier for you to grow and nurture your audience from film to film, so throughout your career. So I always think of marine documentarians or environmental documentarians, because those are the ones that I've seen that they definitely keep to a lane. So Mr. Jeff Orlowski, who was the director for Chasing Coral, he's somebody that I thought of too, because this you might have seen on Netflix, Chasing Coral. He also did Chasing Ice and Living with Jaguars. So popular advice usually tells you to stick to one kind of theme. So when I think about this kind of a filmmaker, the first thing I think about in terms of audience is environmentalists, activists, ocean and water sports lovers, people who are always close to the ocean. So also supporters of environmental groups. They are also people who would be an audience for this film, and anyone whose job really depends on the health of the oceans and seas. Like, they should care about what's going on. When we think about like a documentarian who is really bringing certain things to light, right? So this may sound like a wide audience, but it actually isn't when you put it against like how blockbusters are marketed. This is actually pretty niche. And for me, I'm working on a narrative short about marine health. It's set in a fictional Jamaican village. So I would share an audience with this documentarian, but I would probably get a bit more specific to start, right? My audience would be those who care about the warming and the pollution and other factors that are affecting the Caribbean Sea and the countries within it. Like, I would even niche down further in terms of my direct audience. Like, I would want to target those people because I know because of where they live, they'll care about it. Not to say that others in the world don't. They definitely do, but I'm going to target an audience there first and then build out my other segments, and we'll talk about segments later. So me wanting to go that specific and that niche brings into play the layer of culture that a lot of the advice that you get, so that popular advice that I was talking about before, where it's like niche down based on theme, that's not always realistic or achievable for somebody who is making what people would consider like a foreign film to begin with, right? Because you're already put in like a bucket because you are creating a culturally significant piece of work. So even if you live outside of the Caribbean and you're making a Caribbean film with Caribbean characters who use Caribbean language, you're already kind of put in a box. So this niching down by theme even more probably wouldn't be the best thing for you. And this is just a reality of the market. We are up against a lot of big players in the space, even the indies that have, the connections that we might not have as small cultural or diaspora filmmakers. They are at a greater advantage than us. So my advice, dear indie, like my approach would be to just make what you want, right? Think maybe about your genre, because genre really affects what goes into your development and what goes into your audience building, right? So your targeting. So I would say maybe if you can manage it, if your artistic soul would allow you to work within a genre, then do that. If you can't, because you are called to make something else, then do that and then figure out audience as you go, right? That would be my approach. What's more important than trying to fit yourself into a box is having a clear voice as an auteur, as a filmmaker, as a creator of content, to have a clear voice, because at least if you have a clear voice, however complex or varied it may be, your audience will be able to follow you, right? They won't be confused about what your next project is because they understand your voice, they understand your perspective, they understand why your films are made the way they are, even if that means the stylization is what we're talking about. I forgot to go to this. Make what you want and have a clear voice. So how do you reach your audience and build community? That's the whole reason d'etre right now, right? In our last video, owning the relationship with your audience, I talked about expanding just the way that you think about audience, and community was the big word. Think about your audience as people that you can engage with, even if you're not in the release part of production for a film. So even if you are just working on your next big project, there's still moments for you to engage them. And especially when it comes to funders, we'll talk about that a bit more. Your initial interaction with your audience could definitely be during the time of your release, but You want to continue that conversation, nurture that relationship, get them to be true fans that will also evangelize for you and your work, right? So the activities that you do are really what have that built-in acquisition. The activities that you're doing when you're in selling mode, so when you've just released your film, those are the moments where you want to grab those emails, right? It comes more naturally when it's part of an engagement versus you trying to pull emails at a time where you're desperate for data. If you don't have anything to offer, it's going to be harder for someone if they are new to you, if you are new to them, I should say, to give up their precious email address. Let's look at some of the different type of activities that spur that audience growth. Okay, again, because I'm thinking email marketing, I'm going to be talking in terms of lists and segments, right? So a list is just an audience group that could be your consumers, so who's actually going to be watching, industry people, and press. And then segments will be subcategories within those. So within your consumers, you have people who are also funders, and then you have people who are acquired through streaming. Okay, so let's have a look at these places. So these are places where you can grow audience. Okay, let's start with crowdfunding. So for crowdfunding, email capture is usually built into whatever system you're using to fund, right? And Seed and Spark is really great at helping you focus on audience growth. Like that's one of their things. They teach you how to do that. Focus on audience growth while building your crowdfunding campaign. And then you can use the contact information that you have for those funders to invite them to future activities like screenings and to actually watch the film. There are also people who will possibly, if they're happy with what you've done before, after they've funded with you, they will also be your future funders. So you want to treat them well. You want to treat all your audience well, but you don't want to mess up the relationship with the people who have paid you for your film. And then we have screenings and press junkets. So treat screenings and press junkets like events. So even if your screening is online, you still want to sell tickets for that, right? You can do that through Eventbrite for free. The system that you're using, if you're using one of those digital systems, it will already capture that data for you. You just want to make sure that you have access to that after. So it's not like you are paying or signing up for a system that doesn't give you access to the emails later. That's very important. And then if you're self-distributing, so if you are going to take on showing your film on your own, so whether or not you are hosting your own streaming, doing rentals, or having your film for purchase, like the customers can opt into your list during the time of purchase. So just because someone purchased doesn't mean that you're allowed to further market to them. There are ways that you can build that opt-in right into that purchase transaction, right? And then website visitors, which is kind of obvious. If you have a website, just have a pop-up. That's the simplest way. Just have a pop-up to let them know, like, hey, this is what I'm working on. So no matter what stage of production you're in, you can have a pop-up that has messaging for that so that they know what's going on. So you're telling them right in the text of the pop-up, and then letting them know that they can sign up to get future notifications from you. So when you get to the next phase of production, you can let them know as well. So it's a good way to just have people knowing that they're on this journey with you. And then also when you're doing partnerships. So if you are partnering with an organization, say in my example, if I was partnering with an environmental organization that has a lot of audience themselves, I would want to make sure that getting access to the data of the people who have showed up for my event specifically or signed up for my event, whatever that is, the transaction that you're doing through that partnership, you want to make sure that you're getting data from that. And then there are film festivals. A lot of festivals don't share audience. It's possibly something that you can negotiate depending on the festival. So if you get accepted, ask about it. That's the first thing. Just ask if you get access to the ticketers, like whoever has signed up to view your film. Ask if you can get access to that information, and something you might have to negotiate. Those are the things. I wanted this to be like really short and sweet so that you would be able to consume this information really quickly. But think about this These are my parting words for you. You're not only building your audience to consume your current and future films, you're also using your audience as an asset. Your audience is an asset. Having an audience is something that you can bring to the negotiating table when you're negotiating with distributors, partners, whoever is helping you in terms of publicizing your film in your business as a filmmaker. You're the entrepreneur. One of your assets is the audience that you've worked so hard to cultivate. So all of the marketing activities that you do for every single thing that you work on, every project that you have, don't let it go to waste. Actually build in ways to really capture that audience. And if you're having issues with that, you can chat with us. So just go to isleandindies.com, click the book a chat at the top, and just book a chat with me and we can talk about it. If this is something that's interesting to you and you think it would be helpful to you, subscribe, share, leave a comment. If there's something that I said that you want to continue the conversation about, I will be doing more videos around building audience and eventually marketing to that audience, but I really want to dig into the audience growth first because it's the most important piece of any marketing or branding campaign. So until next time, keep dreaming, keep working, have a wonderful day.